We're going to turn now to an important headline about fish that could have on your dinner plate. Some bluefin tuna off the California coast are carrying radioactive contamination from that nuclear plant that started leaking after last year's earthquake in Japan. ABC's Lindsay Davis here with the details. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, George. Researchers admit they were not expecting this. In fact, this is the first time such a large migrating fish has been shown to carry radioactivity so far. And the scientists involved say the results are unequivocal that Fukushima was definitely the source. Researchers are calling the finding startling. Bluefin tuna arriving off the coast of California all the way from Japan carrying radioactive contamination, apparently leaked from the Fukushima nuclear plant.
We were quite surprised, but there it was.
Researchers from Stony Brook University made the discovery about 5 months after last year's quake and tsunami. The fish had all made the 6,000-mile journey across the Pacific to the U.S. The scientists assumed the radioactivity would have been long gone by the time they arrived because big fish like bluefin tuna, which can weigh more than 1,000 pounds, would typically shed radioactive substances easily. But what they found were levels of contamination 10 times higher than amounts measured in previous years. Still, scientists say the levels are well below safe-to-eat limits and are not likely to affect humans.
Kelp off the coast of California was found to contain levels of radioactive iodine stemming from last year's ongoing Fukushima nuclear crisis in Japan. A team of biologists at California State University, Long Beach, discovered the contaminated kelp, though claimed that the levels of radiation were too low to be harmful. Then again, no amount of radiation is good, but this study does prove that what happens environmentally on the other side of the world does drastically affect the United States. For more on the dangers of nuclear power as an alternative to fossil fuels and what's going on with all this stuff from Fukushima, I'm joined by Paul Gunter, director of the Reactor Oversight Project at Beyond Nuclear. Paul, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks again, Tom.
It's great to have you joining us. Radioactive kelp, is this just the beginning for the United States?
Well, I think that what we're seeing is the evidence of the fallout that when we first came on your show back in March of last year, this was the harbinger that the message that we were bringing, that the radioactivity coming off that plant would precipitate all across the northern hemisphere. And now, a little more than a year into this accident, we're seeing this bioconcentration, this biomagnification that we were talking about a year ago. It's not only appearing in the kelp now off the coast of California, but we've seen recent studies by the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute where they're concerned that hundreds of miles off the coast of Japan, we're now showing evidence of bioaccumulation of radioactive cesium in sea bass, some of the closer schooling fish like smelt in lakes and ponds in Japan. We're seeing levels hundreds and thousands of times greater than what would naturally be there, naturally meaning that this is would be from bomb tests and Chernobyl. So we're seeing this incremental increase from all these other accidents that have occurred over the past decades, now being compounded, now being added as additional body burden of radioactive toxicity in our environment.
It's amazing. By bioaccumulation, the water has levels that are tens or hundreds or thousands of times more concentrated. It gets absorbed by the kelp or the animal life. That massively concentrates it, so it becomes tens of thousands of times. Then that gets eaten by the fish, the small fish. They get eaten by the large fish. And by the time it gets to something as big as a 700-pound tuna, what do we have?
We have a situation that can present itself as a health threat sometime down the road. I mean, any exposure at this point raises your risk. But again, what we have to realize is that the Fukushima Daiichi accident is now adding on to a history of radioactive accidents, deliberate testing of nuclear weapons, and this is increasing the body burden of all life.
How is this going to affect Americans living on the West Coast, and also how is it affecting Japanese, and outside of the Fukushima area, but like in Tokyo.
Right. Well, again, the radioactive fallout that came from the Fukushima accident, it's now turning up in bamboo shoots, milk, beef. So it's both terrestrial contamination and marine-borne contamination. And, we are bioaccumulators as well.
Right.
So
we're the top of the food chain.
We're the very top of the food chain. And I think that the big concern right now is that all of the radiation standards are not taking into account the most vulnerable of our population, namely children and lactating mothers, but instead, the standards continue to be antiquated because they're based on the most robust in our population, a 25-year-old male worker in a nuclear power plant.
Right. So, well, not good. Paul, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, thank you again, Tom.
I appreciate it.
it.
Thanks for showing up.
We do not expect harmful levels of radiation to reach the West Coast, Hawaii, Alaska, or U.S. territories in the Pacific. That is the judgment of our Nuclear Regulatory Commission and many other experts. Furthermore, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and public health experts do not recommend that people in the United States take precautionary measures beyond staying informed. And going forward, we will continue to keep the American people fully updated, because I believe that you must know what I know as president.